good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're able to tune in to this episode of In Conversation with. This is the first In Conversation of the new season, and this series is all focused on private practice and success. And I'm delighted to be joined in this first episode by Siobhan. And Siobhan, thank you for spending some time with us today. It's going to be great this season, I think, don't you?
I think it's going to be the best year ever, to be honest with you, in so many different ways. And I think the one thing that I'm incredibly passionate about is using myself as the best example as to how to thrive in a private practice and recognise what you need to achieve to get there. So
it's all of those components, isn't it?
Yes. And it's really important I'm just going to give a brief outline from my own history here. I have been in private practice and been qualified now for 20 years. So my experience during that 20 years is really based on certain ways of being and utilising certain aspects of what we use in the therapy world to get there. So I want every single therapist out there to feel as competent as they possibly can, but I also want them to understand they do have the power to get to a place where they don't have to do any work on their private practice other than sit in front of clients and wait for those calls to come through, because I'm living proof that that is exactly what you can achieve. That is exactly what's happened to me. I do not go out looking for clients. I do not do any advertising. Yes, I have a website, it's out there. I don't do anything. 99.9% of my referrals are word of mouth.
We're going to do an episode with you just on your experience later in the season, I know. But for today's introduction, let people know kind of some of those components that we're going to be covering in the coming weeks. We spent a lot of time looking at those components, haven't we, over the last few months, to kind of really drill down on what people kind of need to focus on and have in their back pocket as they move from training into private practice. And I'm just going to run through some of those topics that we've got coming up. So we've got financial protections, we've got technological awareness, we've got trauma-informed operational practice, not just what the book says, but kind of the implications. We've got topics around building your brand and your identity and your social media footprint. All of these topics are things that a lot of professionals fall their way through, don't they?
They do, and to be honest, all of those issues are really important, but for me, the two most important are literally your own therapeutic progress and supervision. If I had to wrap up absolutely the most powerful things that help you get where you need to be, those are the two topics that in my personal experience are the biggest two topics to actually get yourself to a place where your private practice is thriving.
And we've got conversations coming up in the season around supervision and how that looks, because just picking up on supervision, APA is, I think, probably the only accreditation service that advises a legal agreement between supervisors and supervisees, aren't we?
We are, but also we're the only organisation that has opened the door to qualified, experienced supervisors being so easily accessible for anybody that is part of our membership. Bear in mind, we have different criteria. So we have the qualified individual as a member, we have the trainee as a member. We also have, in my opinion, one of the best parts of our membership is the PAL membership, which actually allows anybody in the country, no matter what your occupation, whether or not it's a parent just needing psychological information, being part of our membership gives them a direct avenue to really experience psychological professionals that are absolutely brilliant in what they do. So the accessibility to get direct professional help 2 hours per annum free of charge, I think is my personal view, is that's what our membership does. It shares, it educates, and it gives the opportunities for doors to be open to get that accessibility. And that I know isn't in any other organisation out there. So we're completely unique in offering that.
Yeah. And the move from training into private practice is a scary one, isn't it, for anybody?
It's a big thing to take a leap of faith and recognise that actually you can be an independent private practitioner. Now that's where, and I'm not going to go down the routes of why supervision is so important. Like you said, we'll get to that in further on down the line as we do our recordings and our podcasts and all our videos. But the truth of the matter is, it is scary because you are literally dependent on yourself for your income. But the best part of that is the flexibility and freedom that comes with that, with having a supervisor behind you that is so important to have a brilliant relationship with, to guide you through that process. If you think about it, we have a starter pack and we provide that to every single person that wants to have that as part of our membership. You know, it is part of joining us. Now, when I think of, you were going to say something, David, because I know
I'm going to say that is a chargeable product. That is something that members can get at a discounted cost, but it is available as a chargeable product.
Yes, and I appreciate that reminder. David takes care of more things on the technological side and the admin side than I do, and I'm aware of that. But it's so important because when you leave uni and you leave college and you've got that qualification in your hand, that's all you've got. You know, so most courses do not incorporate how to create an assessment, what your information you need to get. They don't attach to the business side and the professionalism that comes outside of the direct training to be able to present yourself in a way that is professional and ethical. So those forms, I had to create my own once upon a time, and I know those forms incredibly well. But you're left with literally a qualification, and that's it.
Yeah, and it's that support system, I think, for anybody that's going into the world of private practice, whether that's as a psychotherapist, as a counsellor, or as a coach, having that consistency that this is the way this process happens every single time, which when you've got people that have been through experience after experience after experience with different professionals, and they get a different consistency every time, it damages the entire network, doesn't it?
It does, because it removes from the consistency. So actually, it turns into a pattern of behaviour within my own self, and I appreciate this. I have my forms, that's my first initial assessment, I run through my boundaries, I bring out my forms, I use them in the information that I know how to, because I've created them. So they're not forms where, and this is the ironic thing, as a trainee, you're really stressed, or you certainly ought to feel stressed, because the responsibility and leap of faith going from trainee to sitting in front of somebody that's paying you is completely different. And because of the responsibility within that process, you have to be in a place where you feel as confident as you can feel, because you're not actually going to be confident, but feeling confident that you've got your preparation, you know exactly what your notes are doing, you know exactly what your templates are, you know exactly how to process the boundaries initially, the paperwork to go through that, utilize the information out of that. It's incredibly important to have that support, because trainees just don't get it once they've qualified.
Yeah, and this is where this season of In Conversation With really comes into its own, because we're going beyond just the documentation, just the consistency. This is a real support package where we're having conversations with those support professionals. So anyone that's on that journey, anyone that is going through that process from trainee to private practice, or someone that's employed that is in the process of becoming self-employed, this is a massive learning opportunity that has been put together to showcase all of those components, because nobody gets, from what I can make out, and I've done a bit of research on this, nobody gets how to do the business side of the therapeutic process, do they?
No, and the lack of education around even considering things like having somebody to answer a phone. Now, I work in an incredibly deep way. I'm well aware of that fact, but that's because I was taught from a very deep perspective. So incorporating things like having a PA, it might sound really expensive to most people, but when you have a remote PA, those PAs, it's ridiculously cheap to be able to have somebody to answer the phone. Now, the reason I think like that is simply because I know most of my clients are attending on the basis somewhere in their history being ignored, not contained in an appropriate, helpful manner. You know, so I put those two together, and I don't want to provide a service for clients where they're ringing an answering machine and leaving a message, because most people that are ringing up won't want to leave a message, and that loses clients. Yet there's the other side of it, that having somebody answer a phone, well, we all know, every one of us know, when we ring out massive organizations or small organizations, too often you can spend 30 minutes just trying to weave your way and navigate through press 1, press 2 for this, press 6 for that, press 8 for that. And eventually you might get hold of somebody. Yeah. Now, for somebody that's feeling anxious, as an example, and this is why I think our support package and the education around private practice is so important. Just having a PA to pick up the phone within 20 seconds of a client ringing means that you don't miss a call. That client is held, that client is contained, and that client knows you're going to get back to them. You know, so these things I had to learn along the way and grow and develop. So even thinking about the location of where you have your private practice, because last year or the last 3 years, we've had COVID. Now, I'm in a public building because I have premises within a public building rather than my back garden. And this is not a judgment. This is about looking at benefits of doing it in a different way. So I want to be really clear about that. But basically, my company got lots of grants during COVID because I was in a public building, and quite a lot of money through those grants to help me through it. Whereas a lot of other professionals, an extortionate amount of them, work from their own premises or work from a garden, which is absolutely beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to get the benefits of having a public building, because the perception of having a public building in relation to a cabin in your back garden, which might be beautiful, can create a completely different dynamic. And more to the point, last year, I got an extortionate amount of money via the council in relation to COVID, and that helped out enormously.
Yeah, and this is a lot of the advice that has been given to professionals that has allowed that kind of work from home, work from the garden, etc., didn't take into account the support systems that are already built in to the statutory protections. So a lot of people were excluded from support because of the advice that they'd been given, which didn't include things like that the awareness of those support systems. And we saw huge numbers of professionals excluded from support.
And the stress, as a self-employed individual that has been, gone from being really thriving in private practice to overnight not being able to work for almost 9 months due to serious illness at the time, the impact of you when you're working at a level financially in your personal life, because the more money you get, the more money you spend. So it's that simple. But the problem with that is that when you have nothing overnight like that, your money drops, but the finances that you've created that you're paying out for because you're working at a standard of living that you worked the day before you couldn't work impacts on you in a way that is absolutely horrendous, the stress that comes with that. So it's important to be aware of all these little unique nuances that we're going to go through and hopefully create, if you like, one video after another that allows people to really see if you want a thriving practice, it is absolutely possible. But putting in these things in place will change how you feel in your confidence, make you feel much more prepared, make you present very much in a professional manner. We are supposed to be professionals. We're working with people's lives. We have to have a standard of care. How we want to present that standard of care is up to the individual. But ultimately, it's about incorporating the training, but separating from the part of us that goes, I care, which is great within the therapeutic space, to a business ethos, and it's shifting the mind from one bit to another until you create a success. And holding on to both attributes of business and the therapeutic work.
And this season's In Conversation With is really driven to raising the awareness of those component parts that allow that success to grow without putting additional pressures on the professional, right?
Yeah, because one of the most important things is to become really, really relaxed in your own self, because your clients have the answers. They bring themselves to you, but a huge amount of therapists put a huge amount of pressure on themselves. And bear in mind, if I go back to my own training days, I was terrified of making a mistake. And that's the thing I want to help people transition from being a trainee to a qualified individual that will always feel that stress, because I'd actually be quite worried if somebody didn't feel that when they were starting to do their own private work, because it would really make me question where their head is at with a lack of experience, yet assuming that they are experienced. But that's another story.
That's a conversation for another day.
But it's a massive leap of faith to say, I can do this. Now, a lot of people, they often will work in a form of employment while they're training, and they ease themselves depending on their ability to be able to do that and the employment that they're working on. It's almost like learning to go from full-time work and training to part-time work and beginning to qualify to part-time sustaining you while you go forward and build your private practice. So you've got a level of security. And then when your private practice is catering for enough people to support you, because this is the important factor that most people don't appreciate. If you are not able to earn, the danger is you can psychologically look to keep a client, to keep your own finances going. And that is totally and utterly unethical. So the importance of knowing your own business and knowing, one, how to work with a client, but not to keep them, but to help them grow and develop, they become the people that sell your company for you without you ever doing one review.
Yeah.
So I know I'm quite unique in the way that I work. I really do know that, but it's worked for my clients and it's worked for me. And we're covering an extensive amount of topics as we go through this to guide people to where they could be if they really want to be there.
Yeah. So for everybody that's watching, this is really your chance to kind of go and get involved. We want you, if pardon me, if you are successful in your private practice and you want to share your experience, come and let us know. Let's have a conversation and share your experiences and let more people grow from your experience, as much as it is from Siobhan, myself and the team piecing together the components of that success. But also, if you're a student and you are wanting to make that leap, come and have a conversation with APA. Let's look at your experience, your aspirations, and see how that transition from trainee to qualified therapeutic professional and successful private practitioner can happen. And let's share those conversations as much as we can. Siobhan, thank you so much for your time. I want to say that I'm really looking forward to this season. It's the first time where we're bringing in so many different component parts of the mental health support system. And I'm really looking forward to being able to showcase why the starter pack is as fundamentally vital as it is. But I'm also looking forward to being able to share some of your experience over that 20 years that has got you to a point where you are running the two organizations, and kudos to you for that.
And I give kudos to, which is one of the things I advocate so strongly, but thank you for, if you like, coming to an end and wrapping this up, because I'm just about to add something else. This is where I feel so strongly about brilliant supervision. And we will be talking about that in depth, because without my supervisor, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I know that. So I owe so much to Adrian Pennington, bless his heart, rest in peace, because without a brilliant supervisor and somebody that works with you in a nurturing, supporting, educative way, then you'll never get where you really deserve to feel so comfortable in front of a client. We've got so much to talk about, and I've got so much information I want to share. So I will hold it, I will contain it, because I know if there's one thing that I can do, it's just go completely off on a tangent and then you have to reel me right back in. So thank you, David. I am so glad to be here, so excited about the future videos that we're going to be showing and utilising everything that I was taught and giving it to others that need and ought to have that information. So thank you for the opportunity for us to be here today.
Well, I want to say a massive thank you to you for what you're bringing to this season, but I also want to give a mention to some of the people that are also contributing to this season. We've got Marcus Spears from 3 Pillars Financial Planning. We've got Kim Page from ISO Connect. We've got David Margot coming from Divorce Solutions. We've got Dennis coming from PsychReg. We've got a special on the mythical barriers to therapy coming up. So all of these things kind of playing a part, and all of these people putting in their contributions and more. So tune in. These episodes will go out as planned, fingers crossed, every Wednesday from the beginning of June. So tune in to the APA channel on Wednesdays through June and beyond, and really hope that we can showcase all of those components that allow the therapeutic professional, whether they're a psychotherapist, whether they are a counsellor, whether they are a coach, or get this, whether they simply work with psychological awareness, giving them those tools and that awareness so they can build successful practices is going to be a massive focus moving forward as the world of mental health evolves over the next year. But for now,
I often think, David, who would actually believe the fact that I don't do any advertising anymore. Yeah, I'm completely overrun. But
I do, because I can never get hold of you.
and that's the point. I want to share that. I want to share that and help other people know that they can do that, because I know that the world of mental health is a very divisive place, and yet I will always be honest about what I'm doing, how I got there, and what created the situation to help me get there. It is doable. It's an amazing vocation to be part of. The joy of running your own company, and I'm certainly not from a business background, but the joy of running it and what we're going to incorporate, I genuinely know will help people. And that's APA's aim, help people overall. So please take up what David is saying. Please come and actually see what we're doing, because we want to help. And that is where we sit, helping others to achieve what we know that their potential can actually lead them to be. So David, thank you very much for being here today.
It's my pleasure, and I really look forward to sharing the episodes coming up. As I say, if you want to get involved, get involved. Don't think that your experience isn't valuable to us, to the rest of the sector. You have a part to play, and that experience is part of that layering. So for now, take care, and we'll see you in another episode very, very soon.
Bye.